So let's talk about sort of the positive side of things. So recovery, what does that look like? I mean, you guys, this is common sense, right? They need individual and group therapy for those survivors that we bring out. Medical, we talked about that a little bit. Chances are their trafficker has not been feeding them fruits and vegetables, right? And hasn't been taking care of their medical needs. About 50% of of DMST survivors have PTSD at the level of a combat soldier, but there's a nuance to that PTSD that's different from a combat soldier, because that combat soldier is experiencing that trauma from someone who's the enemy, correct? DMST survivors, oftentimes they're experiencing trauma from someone who loves them, if nothing else, from a lot of people who are having an intimate sexual relationship with them. That's where their trauma is coming from. So that has different connotations, creates completely different triggers, and it's often difficult to get them through that. There's also a spiritual component to that. I had a pastor come and talk to me about the concept of soldiers often have a hard time with the trauma of the spiritual side of being in war and being in battle and taking a life. Well, sometimes in DMST, depending on their upbringing, some of these kids in their recovery process really struggle with moving through the spiritual aspect of what's been going on with them, if that's their background. And they have that sort of that dichotomy of what they believe and what they've been doing, and it's hard. Court victim and advocacy. Again, child cannot be a prostitute, but certainly if they've been doing drugs, they've been dealing drugs, they've been shoplifting, they've been truant, that's a crime. They've a runaway, if they're a foster kid and they keep running, they're going to get picked up by DFPS and CPS. They're going to have crimes, and so there's some court advocacy. We have an amazing thing in San Antonio called Restore Court. So if somebody's down in our juvenile justice system and as part of their assessment, it's found out that human trafficking has been part of what has happened to them, they're taken over into a separate court system where everybody sits around a table. There's a long laid out plan. Judge Laura Parker created it, and I can't off the top of my head remember who replaced Judge Parker in the last election, but that other judge is also amazing, and she's continued with Restore Court. So oftentimes the survivors are in some sort of a court advocacy system, so we need to help them through that. Relational skills. They have no clue as to how to have a normal friendship. They certainly have no idea how to have a normal, healthy, romantic relationship. And if they're going back home, interacting with their parents is very difficult. It's just hard to be their parent, and it's hard to be a teenager going back home. So they need help with that. Life skills. If this has been going on for them for a while, began when they're 12, now they're 16, 17, they've never filled out a job application. They don't know how to shake a hand or dress correctly for an interview, or how to boil an egg, or how to make it, how to do any of those life skills that we tend to be teaching our kids as they're in that age group. And education. Oftentimes, going back into the public school system is not a good idea. First of all, that may be where they were trafficked, but also they just don't fit in, and so they choose to drop out because they see no other recourse. So those are some of the many things that they need in recovery. So let's talk about some red flags. So if you are interacting with youth on a regular basis, you're a parent, you're in the school system, just if you interact with youth on a regular basis, what you're looking for are changes. You're looking in a change, like a sudden or maybe even sometimes over a gradual change over time. Like a change in their possessions. Wow, like he's got the latest, greatest, newest iPhone. Like I don't even have that. I have like a 2 or 3 year old phone. How in the world, I know his family situation, how can he afford that? Wow, she's got that brand of handbag? How is those jeans, I know how expensive those jeans are, how is that happening? Or a change in how they choose to dress and what they're wearing. So, they used to look like a normal 14-year-old. Now all of a sudden they're like covering up. They're wearing like hoodies and long sleeves, and they want to like just kind of fade into the woodwork, and they, their hair is disheveled, and they just don't look like things are going well in their life. And you notice that, or the exact opposite of that. Suddenly they're dressing very nicely, and they're dressing very provocatively, and they're suddenly more boastful and outspoken when they used to be sort of that shy kid in the class. What changed at 13, 14 years old? So you're looking for changes. A sexuality in their verbiage or in their actions that's different from how they used to be and is way beyond their years. Terminology, saying things you're like, I don't even know what that means in the world of sex. How does she know? How does he know what that means? So those are some of the things you're looking for out there in the world if you interact with kids. And then Stephanie and I were talking a little bit earlier today, and I'm actually going to add a couple of these on my slides. Kids who are constantly couch surfing, right? They don't really have that permanent home, and they're going from place to place. They're extremely vulnerable for this. Older boyfriend is a big, huge red flag. I certainly teach that when I'm talking to 11 to 17-year-olds. It's a big part of what we talk about. Older boyfriend or an older friend, like a woman who wants to befriend you who's in your 30s. That just doesn't make sense. If you're 14 and some 33-year-old woman wants to be your best friend, that's messed up. That doesn't make any sense. People should be best friends with people. I'm friends with people that I go to church with who are that age, but I'm not their best friend. That's weird. So boyfriends, older boyfriends, people wanting to keep a relationship secret. Like you hear that there's a boyfriend or a friend that she's not telling anybody about or he's not letting anybody know about. You know what? We teach kids, if a guy loves you, he wants to meet your mom and your dog and your little brother. He does. If he really loves you, he should want to do all of that. So those are some of the red flags that we teach kids. Just general public encounters. So you're out tomorrow, out and about on a Saturday, and you see a situation where there's a young person who is in the company of an older controlling adult, and because of their actions or how they're interacting with that young person, it's kind of obvious that that's not dad. How he's touching her, how he's telling her what to do, he's answering all the questions. If it's a school day in the middle of the day, how come she's not in school? How come he's not in school? If it's cold, like it's like weather like this, and she's wearing next to nothing, that's not right. Something's odd. Or it's August in San Antonio, and she's wearing a bunch of stuff, right? And again, all these things are red flags. This doesn't mean, oh, that person's being trafficked, but they're just things that you go, that just doesn't look right to me. They seem disoriented or drugs. Like if you're out at a Whataburger or somewhere and they eat like they haven't eaten in a week, it's probably because they haven't eaten in a week. So you're just looking for things that just seem out of place, out of ordinary to you. And sort of the concept that you need to kind of keep in mind is that, Stephanie taught me this, my new saying, so this is a quote from Stephanie Peterson, have eyes to see. I bet money that pretty much everybody in this room has seen a human trafficking victim and didn't even realize it. I know that's probably true of me. If I go back through things, I'm like, oh, that time when I was in Ross Dress for Less and that guy was there with those two girls, like years ago, I'm like, I bet that's what this was. I bet that's what I was seeing. So have eyes to see, and then take action steps. Do something about that. Just don't just go, oh, that's that thing that lady talked about the other day that I heard. What's your action step? Well, I met not too long ago with a gentleman who's on the joint SAPD FBI Human Trafficking Task Force. And I said, what is it that you want me to teach these audiences about what to do when they do see something that stands out to them? And he said, all I want them to do is call local law enforcement. You can call the Special Victims Unit, the SVU unit, SAPD. You can call Crime Stoppers. You can just call the main number to SAPD and say, this is what I'm seeing, and I think it might have something to do with human trafficking. And just be a professional witness. Just tell them what you're seeing, as that my friend in law enforcement said, that made the hair on the back of your neck stand up. It's not your job to figure out if it's human trafficking or not. You're not a trained detective. Just go, that's not right, and call that in. And just be a professional witness. She's in jeans and a white shirt, and she's with a guy in a Houston Astros baseball cap, and he's wearing an orange shirt, and they just got in a white Toyota pickup, and I didn't get all the license plate, I just got an L. Call that in. And just give them all the information you know. And then after you're done talking to local law enforcement, call this number, 888-373-7888. I know that's not how we write numbers normally, but it's so much easier to remember, 888-373-7888. Or if you're like me and I can't remember numbers, then just, there's an app. Truckers Against Trafficking has an app for Samsung, and I can't remember what for an Android. If you have an iPhone, there's apps that you can put on your iPhone that take you directly to that National Human Trafficking Hotline number. You don't have to remember 888-373-7888, but you could memorize it if you wanted to. Why do you call local law enforcement and call National Human Trafficking Hotline? Anybody? Because what if somebody in Baton Rouge the next day says, girl in jeans and a white shirt with a guy in an Astros cap and he's wearing an orange shirt and they just got in a white pickup truck and I just got 7 on the license plate. And then somebody in Mobile, Alabama sees them. Same description, same thing. because SAPD is not going to communicate with Biloxi, Mississippi, and Biloxi, Mississippi is not going to communicate with Jacksonville, Florida, right? So just call both numbers, and they'll track that, and they might just go, thank you for calling all that information in. It's just that little bitty piece. But that little bitty piece, plus your little bitty piece, plus his little bitty piece, that might be enough that we can go and we can increase that percentage that we pull out of this issue. So if you see something, say something. We've all been trained, that's none of my business. This is your business, because you might be the exit ramp for that kid who's caught up in this highway. So there's an amazing organization here in the San Antonio area called the Alamo Area Coalition Against Trafficking. It is made up of a wide range of different organizations, nonprofits like Ransomed Life or Magdalena House or the Rape Crisis Center or the Heidi Search Center, law enforcement, SAPD, FBI, Homeland Security, EEOC, our prosecutors, federal prosecutors, our district federal prosecutor comes to every single meeting, our juvenile justice people, San Antonio Police Department, FBI agents. We meet the second Tuesday of every other month. It's a coalition of people who come together, who do a lot of different things about the issue of human trafficking together. Every year, the coalition puts on a seminar. Stephanie just told me that she was at our seminar the last 2 years. So you can, our website's really not great yet. We're still working on using some grant money to fix that, our meaning the Alamo Area Coalitions. But you could Google Alamo Area Coalition Against Trafficking, or ACAT, AACAT.org. You can find out a wide variety of different organizations who are involved in this, from the labor trafficking side to the adult sex trafficking side to the domestic minor sex trafficking side. We're all working on this together in conjunction with each other. So just to give you guys a little bit of information about Ransomed Life, who we are and what we do. We are a nonprofit. We're here locally. We work with 12 to 17-year-old girls. We do not work with boys. That's not our lane. We have a 4-pillar program of what we do to restore hope in their lives. One is each of the young ladies who is referred to us, usually through juvenile justice or the gang unit or one of the other agencies involved in human trafficking. When a young lady is referred to us, she is assigned a mentor. We don't just pick a name out of a hat and then assign that to a girl. We kind of go through a process to help her find the mentor that makes the most sense for her. Their personalities click through, sometimes they come to a couple of our events. So one-on-one mentoring. Each of our young ladies has a mentor. It's not a therapist, it's not a counselor, it's just a woman over the age of 21 who walks through life with them. And then we have created an education program because so many of our girls were just dropping out and not going back to school. So we have created, it's kind of an assessment program. For some of them, we use a homeschool program. For some, we're just gonna work on getting their GED. For some, they really do need a much more structured environment, so they need to be back in public school, but with a lot of assistance and help. For some, it's just tutoring within public school. For some, they're ready to move on to the college level, whether that's Alamo area colleges and getting them involved in that. So whatever each of the young ladies needs, we're part of one of our pillars is that. And then this, what I do here, so community awareness, and then youth prevention. I'm gonna talk a little bit more about that, and then we'll get to our 4th pillar of restoration here in just a second. So community awareness. According to the U.S. Department of Education, if this bugs you, like it does me, if this is something you're like, that's just appalling and I want to do something about it, one of the best ways you can combat human trafficking is to increase public awareness, increase community awareness, according to the U.S. Department of Education. How many of you guys heard something today, learned something today that you didn't already know about human trafficking? Okay, so of those who raised your hand, how many of you know another human being who doesn't know what you now know, right? So we have a team of people that will go out, and we're not the only ones who do this. There are other coalition members who will do this too, but the team of people at Ransomed Life who do this, we will speak to 2 people or 200 people or 2,000 people. A couple weeks ago, a lady who's part of our presentation team, she presented to her mom's sewing group. Okay, that's kind of cool. There's people who needed to hear this. So a gentleman who heard one of our presentations, he owns an insurance agency in San Antonio, has a Monday morning sales meeting that all of his agents are required to be at. He had Ransomed Life come and present about human trafficking to his agents because they're out in the community. And he felt like they needed to know this in case they ever saw anything. Plus, it kind of broke his heart and he wanted to do something, and he saw that slide and was like, well, I've got 52 people who I require to be in my office every Monday, and they're going to hear this. So any format. We like to talk in living rooms to people, or we like to talk in group settings like this. So my cards are out there on the table. You can go to our website and go request a speaker, and we'll have somebody come and speak to any group of people you want to put us in front of, however creative you want to be with that. And then the other part of what our team does is prevention. So it makes a whole bunch more sense to me to keep people from ever falling into that abyss than to try and pull them out and bring them to a sense of recovery. And it's hard to do. So we really focus a lot on youth prevention. So we deliver a program called TRAPS. We did not create it. It was made by an organization called Traffic 911 out of Dallas. We partner with them to deliver it. We base our concept there on this quote from Frederick Douglass. I actually got to meet his great-great-grandson, a gentleman by the name of Kenneth Morris. Kenneth Morris taught me this quote. Frederick Douglass said, "Knowledge makes a man unfit to be a slave. Because once you know it, you're not going to be involved in it." And so we use that philosophy with youth. We're much more likely to keep them out of the world of human trafficking if we can educate them about it, and not just keep them out of it as a victim, but have them never participate in it, which I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about how to not to participate in human trafficking. So that's our TRAPS program, same thing. You go to our website, request a speaker, it says, do you want TRAPS? And you click, yes, I want TRAPS, and we'll have one of our presenters come and we'll speak to 4 teenagers in your living room, or at your pool outside, or at a school, or your church, or it doesn't matter. You get 11 to 17-year-olds together, we'll come present TRAPS to them.